series of conversations with the winners of the Property Investors Awards 2024. In this episode, we'll be speaking to the winner of New Property Investor of the Year, Olivia Hornby. Thank you so much for joining me today, Olivia. It's really lovely to have you on. And firstly, huge congratulations on winning New Property Investor of the Year.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me. It's lovely to meet you.
Oh, it's lovely to meet you as well. And before we go on to the awards themselves, I just want to go back a little bit in time and ask how your property career first started.
Well, I started really when I moved out of London. I was one of the many during COVID who made the decision to kind of move out to the country, and I sold up the flip that I'd done in London, and that meant that I was able to do something that I wanted to take on another project. I bought a house that had potential, but I also was able to sort of look into an actual investment property. And that really was the start of me, all the learnings around property strategies, that I think everyone has that initial kind of, once they want to start, is, sort of great hunger to learn absolutely everything. So I got really into all the books and podcasts and, couldn't kind of consume enough. And I managed to kind of fall on my first projects that, then I wanted to build on and start, it was a great success. And I wanted to start building a proper business and building this into something meaningful. And yeah, it was exciting. It was a decision driven a lot by, a lifestyle I wanted to create. I wanted to kind of be a full-time mum, but I obviously needed to be, bringing in income to sort of be able to, live. So that was the drive. And once I'd completed this first project, it gave me the confidence to start actually building a business. And I think through meeting people in property, that kind of, drives you on as well.
Definitely, definitely. And with the networking and stuff, particularly with the Property Investors Awards, which we'll talk more about later on. But as we were just saying before we just started the interview, with networking and stuff, particularly with the Property Investors Awards and meeting people from all different walks of life, which is really, really great. And you were touching on there about your property business. Firstly, can I just say I love the name of your property business because I
Thank
just
you.
think it's a so cool little name. For anyone that doesn't know, can you just explain a little bit about your property business and also the name behind it as well?
So the business started, because I took on a project that required setting up my own company. It was the most logical step to kind of start the company, and I think possibly from a background of design, I didn't want it to just be Olivia Hornby property. I wanted it to maybe in the future become a brand, and I wanted it to, I suppose, sort of have quite a strong visual impact. But I did kind of want it to still be Olivia Hornby property. So how was I going to do that? So O property is actually, it is my name. So obviously O, and then the double O comes from Hornby trains, and my family, we use double O all the time. For varying things. It was even the password for my dad's factory when we were growing up to get in. So it just seemed like quite a good link to actually say O. And that is all about the kind of model trains and the gauge that they made them at. So that's where the name came from. And it's visually, I think, more memorable. But yeah, I love it, and I hope to grow it into kind of more of a brand within property that people sort of enjoy and want to invest in.
Yes, definitely. Well, I absolutely love the name, and I hope our viewers do too, because I think it's really clever with the with the double O, particularly like with Hornby trains. I imagine you get like when you always say, "Oh, Hornby," and then everyone's like, "Oh, like the train."
That is it. Yeah. So every time, yeah, it's certainly growing up, it was always being asked. I think less so now, just because maybe less people know about Hornby trains. Um, but yeah, I pretty much everywhere, certainly very regularly go, oh, like the trains. So it's quite a nice link. Unfortunately, we're not affiliated actually with Hornby trains, but yeah.
Oh, well, I think that's really, really great. And it's great to hear about more like about your OO property business. And going on to that as well, like, is there a particular sort of favorite property project that you've worked on that you'd like to share with us?
Um, yeah, I've been thinking about that. I mean, obviously, I'm quite new in my journey, but prior to property, worked as an architectural designer. So I've worked on many, many projects ranging in size and complexity. But in terms of my own investing, I mean, I've got to say my first project is one of these golden gems, which was just really simple. And I was able to, as a beginner, able to kind of execute very simply. Um, and it was a short lease property, a flat that had been made accessible the previous owner, as he, sort of he needed it to kind of accommodate wheelchair use. And the garden had kind of been completely concreted with all these ramps and had really unattractive bars. And everyone was put off by that because they didn't really know what to do with it. It didn't put me off. I was not fazed by it at all. And speaking to another investor that had wanted to take it on, they came and spoke to me because they had another property nearby. And they were, I really wanted this property. I just had no idea to do with what to do with all this concrete. And I just didn't understand why everyone found that so complicated because I just decked over it, leveled the whole thing out, decked over it, and created this kind of really lovely sort of sun catching sort of um, decking in the garden. Anyway, that has been a really successful property project, which was a lot about kind of refurbishment as well as the kind of lease extension. But then, on a complete contrast, obviously, the project that I won the award for, I have to mention that because it's been a fantastic project. It's been a huge project for me. And that was much more of an administrative development. So a totally different side to property, completely abandoning all my design background, almost all my design background, and having to work very much on kind of the administrative side, legal side, as I title split this block of flats and refinanced flats individually to keep, and the business structure around that to kind of benefit financially, but was very complex and not something I'd ever done before. But yeah, it's worked, and I've got to the other end of it, and yeah, it's been a fantastic project.
Oh, well, that's great to hear. And that's great to hear about like your first property project as well. That sounds like a real gem, as you say. And then going on to, as you said, a complete contrast with your project that you won the award for. That sounds really, really great. And I can see why you won New Property Investor of the Year. And obviously, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but your property business deals with like historical buildings. Is that right?
Yeah, that is a very keen interest. I mean, they're
Yeah.
beautiful, and I suppose I've got from my design background, got a confidence in dealing with them. they are more complicated, but in terms of a property investment strategy, a lot of people are put off by listed buildings. So you can kind of find these little golden nuggets that, people aren't kind of going for as readily. And um, yeah, I think if you're willing to kind of go through some of the sort of more complex sort of processes that they require, or the kind of permissions and things like that, then they can be really beneficial. So I think when I set out, I was definitely very keen to build a property portfolio that, had a service accommodation slant. I've now shifted on from that, but that definitely led me to wanting to take on buildings that were very beautiful, and, for having, really quite stunning apartments or buildings that people could kind of enjoy stays in, certainly on the more holiday side of the service accommodation. So that was more of a drive, and why the project that got recognised by the awards, it's in a very stunning building. It's quite striking, and it's definitely had its ups and downs and complications for being listed. But I'm looking for those kind of projects. I'm not fazed by them, and yeah, that's how I'd like to. I'm not completely confined by that. Um, Wanting to look for historical buildings, I will look at anything, but those are what I'm drawn to, for the reason that people aren't maybe using them, considering them as much, and so there's maybe a little bit more opportunity.
Definitely. And you were mentioning there as well about some of the challenges that come with listed buildings as well. How do you overcome these challenges, particularly with listed buildings?
I think confidence and patience. So, I mean, it's working with authorities, really trying to understand, what the restrictions are, and finding solutions. I love finding solutions for things. There's always an answer. That every problem can be answered in some sort of way. Um, I think some of the kind of more challenging things with the the kind of block of flats that I took on. Um, Obviously, I didn't really do much work. I've done sort of light refurbishments in the flats, and but I've not made any alterations. It was very much an administrative task. But the the previous owners that had done some of the developments hadn't kind of gone through the full process, hadn't got the development they'd done in the basement didn't have the kind of full sign off. So I had to kind of go through that process, um, and that takes time. And making sure that every box has been ticked when you haven't done the development, and you're still kind of getting to grips with what some of the requirements were. That's and speaking to all the right people about that, because you can't, when it happened kind of over 20 years ago, the contractors aren't there, and you're like, have they put the right windows in? And so yeah, that was one of the challenges. But and another one was making sure all the residents understood and respected it as well, and also understood who took responsibility for kind of parts of the building. So leaseholders, that they have to understand what's they're responsible for within that listing as well. So there's been a couple of sort of scenarios that I've had to deal with that have in terms of resolving various conflicts on kind of understandings around the listing within the building, because they think it's to do with the building, but it's actually to do with the whole grounds. So they can't just sort of expect to put a shed up, get me to say yes, it's okay to put a shed up. Like that needs permissions. I cannot alter anything within the grounds. I wanted to widen the driveway, and that right down to just a very slight change on that, you have to go through all the permissions. And that's all very costly. So it's not really worth doing. And then you have to kind of think about how to make improvements without, it's getting that balance really. So those are some of the challenges that you face and I've faced, definitely.
Well, it sounds like that you overcame all those challenges to win New Property Investor of the Year, which is great. And I really like the advice that you gave at the beginning as well, which is confidence and patience. So I hope anyone that's watching that's dealing with listed buildings, or I think any kind of property investment, listens to that advice. And going on to the awards themselves, firstly, I have to ask, how does it feel since you've won the award?
Oh, I mean, it was so unexpected. You kind of go, I wanted to go for it, and my mentor had, encouraged me to. Obviously, he nominated me. It was the application process. It's very involved. There's a lot of information you have to submit, and I think through that process, I both kind of felt really confident about the project because it really made you analyze it in a kind of new way, or think about things that you'd maybe not fully considered. You'd kind of looked at the strategy in a certain way, and presenting it sort of really made you evaluate it again. And so I felt, there was an element of me going, oh yeah, I feel really confident about that. And then other elements was like, oh God, they're never going to choose this. Like, my goodness me, like this is, there's going to be people that have done far better. So to actually have my name called out, like it was amazing to become a finalist, but then have my name called out. Yeah, it was really exciting. It's been really exciting. It's been, an opportunity for me that I didn't fully expect to be given. And, it has definitely given me a lot of visibility and credibility. And yeah, I mean, I'm starting to kind of build a new network of people that, have been really intrigued about what I'm doing. And yeah, I'm hoping to kind of build on that and build relationships that I potentially may not have had otherwise, because, my current life situation is I'm not able to kind of sort of be out and about like quite like I was a couple of years ago. And that, I suppose having the award has really kind of helped me to navigate this new kind of networking style that I'm having to develop. And it's great to have the award to kind of bring that visibility when I'm not able to physically be visible all the time. So yeah, it's been amazing, really amazing, and a confidence boost,
Oh,
definitely.
oh, well, that's really, really great to hear. And yeah, as you said, there were so many deserving finalists as well, who are all amazing, and so many deserving winners on the night as well. And you were
Yeah,
mentioning there
absolutely.
as well about with the networking. So would you definitely recommend people apply to the Property Investors Awards?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a no-brainer in my opinion. Um, I think, obviously the sort of hype and sort of authority it kind of gives you in the industry. You're suddenly sort of elevated to kind of be around all these really kind of experienced investors and people working within property that when you're, certainly for me being the new investor, it's a new journey for me. um it's really beneficial. And but then on a personal level, I didn't take the project on to be, you know to attract attention, but putting it out there to attract attention was, a really great process for me personally to go through. It took a bit of confidence, and it kind of pushed me to present it in an award winning way. Um, and that was, I think, personally a really great approach of like, hang on a minute, I can really kind of make something really impactful here, and start working on a much more professional level, which is what I want to be doing and building over the next few years.
Definitely, definitely. And as we were just saying before about sort of the application process, going through it and like actually making sure everything's in there, and then you're like, oh yeah, wait a minute, I didn't realize about this. But yeah, even though the application process, it can be quite long, it's definitely, definitely worth applying for. And it sounds like
Yeah.
you're doing really, really great in the last, well, 12 months. But what have you got planned for in 2025?
Um, so I am. Well, I'm looking for another project. So I would love to take on another title split project, as I feel that that is my strategy. Um, and I've just moved back to London, so obviously I moved out of London to sort of pursue a kind of different life. I was nearer my family, and the that meant I was able to start my property business. My life has sort of changed a lot over the last few years. My property business, but then personally as well, in an extremely positive way. I'm an extremely lucky person. Um, and anyway, the result of that has meant that I'm moving back to London, or I have moved back to London. And so that's sort of making me reevaluate some of like what my search radius is. So I'm getting to know I'm reassessing that and looking for opportunities within that. So I'm looking for those probably slightly smaller blocks of flats, things that I can maybe turn over more quickly, things that I can, aren't going to require me maybe being on site really regularly. And So that's the kind of property investing side. And I also kind of am pushing the short lease strategy as well alongside that. So kind of two focuses I have on the property investing, and then additionally, kind of combining my design skills, I am starting to do staging for developers. So I love it. It's so much fun. I absolutely love it. The project timelines are just really kind of compatible with life right now, and so rewarding. It's great fun. So that's another side in my kind of property journey that I'm kind of pushing during 2025, and would really like to kind of get it to a point where the two together mean that I'm kind of fully involved in property.
Oh, well, that sounds really, really great. And best of luck to you as well for all that during
Thank
2025.
you.
And best of luck in your property journey as well. You seem to be doing amazingly, so I don't think
Oh,
you need
thank
to
you.
worry. Oh, you're very welcome. And finally, I'd like to ask you, for any aspiring property investors that are watching, what advice would you give to them?
Get out there, get involved, and just try and learn as much as you can. Really kind of deeply understand your strategies. And I think, like, I dived into the deep end. I'd have only done that and only been able to pull it off if I had having had the support from my mentor. So if I can do a shout out for Mark Lloyd, who, through networking, I met him, and, we kind of got chatting, and, I kind of built a relationship with him that I felt very comfortable in. He introduced me to Andrew Featherstone, who became my kind of mentor within title splitting. And between those two gentlemen, they gave me the confidence and sort of professionalism or encouraged the professionalism that's required for projects of that size. And I think to have done that as one of my first projects, or one of my very early projects, is quite a jump. And so, yeah, I think my strong advice is to kind of get your get those people around you that can support you, give the confidence, really um, carry you through those difficult times, because they are there and you can't escape them. Those challenges, you can't prepare for some of them, and having that support is invaluable. That is my advice. Yeah. Get a Mark Lloyd or an Andrew Featherstone. I do think you need to make sure that you are very comfortable and you know trusting of whoever it is. And yeah, I definitely felt that relationship was there with both Mark and Andrew, and just they're very real, grounded, and you know just you know and ongoing, just helping me, even though the formal mentorship has finished. They are now, I feel, kind of almost lifelong supports for me, and people sounding boards and inspiration as well. So, um, I didn't mean to plug them. I wasn't on here to plug them, but I sound like they've bribed me into mentioning them. They really genuinely haven't. But yeah, it would certainly be my advice: is fill your life with that support.
Definitely, definitely. And no, we absolutely love Mark and Andrew. We're more than happy to give a shout out to them. For
Yeah.
sure, definitely. And yeah, as you said, definitely with that confidence as well, because it just goes to show if you have confidence in yourself, then look at what you can achieve. And you've done absolutely amazing and won new Property Investor of the Year. So thank you so much for joining me today, Olivia. And for anyone that's watching, please do consider to apply to the Property Investors Awards. Thank you so much for joining me today, Olivia. It was lovely to have you on.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me.